Hello again, it's Robert. Back again talking about the Pathscape Create software, and today we're going to concentrate on the pathway connectivity perform touchscreens and how you would add them to your project to control different aspects of it. Now, the hardware is available in both 8-inch and 5-inch, and you can get them in black or white as shown here. And using this universal adapter plate, which works for North American, British, and European backboxes, you can mount the devices either horizontally or vertically, and you can have up to 32 devices in a single project on a controller. Now I have an example file here that I've used in the past. This is a hospital waiting room, a lounge on the 8th floor, and it's at the St. Joseph's Children's Hospital. We want to make a nice touchscreen interface for the nurses to control the lights in this area. When I was drawing this, I actually broke up the number of fixtures into the spaces as defined like this. So everything in the project is on the 8th floor, and we have the nurses station here, and I broke off this brown section here as the edge lights along the front of the nurses station, and we have the left and the right side, and we have the hallway lights, which in this case are nLight controlled tunable lights. So I don't really want to look at the spaces like this. I want to look at the entire 8th floor as a unit. But when I go to drop in a device, and now I'll choose a 5-inch touchscreen, it, as I am placing it, does decide to show me the spaces because it's very important where you drop the controller. If I were to drop it into this yellow space, it would only be able to control the looks that are addressed to these downlights. If I dropped it on the front of the nurses station here, it would only control the edge lights. But if I drop it into the 8th floor project space, that includes all of the children's spaces. So then this touchscreen controller will have access to everything in my project. So once you drop it in, you can see it in your devices list here. And if you are online, you can choose the device, seeing which one you want, and commit it to the project. And every time you upload the project file to the controller over here, it will actually dish out the configuration of what this touchscreen interface is supposed to look like for your clients. Now that is defined by right-clicking on it and saying edit the interface. And the first thing it asks you to do is select a theme. And the themes will decide the layout of the buttons and the navigation with the back arrow, the hamburger menu, are buttons at the bottom. Do the sliders look like round dials, or do they look more like vertical sliders? So I like this modern theme. Next, we choose the skin, which is the color pattern, color themes of the buttons. And I like this dark amethyst theme. And then we choose next, and it says which pages would you like to have access to. Now if I drop this right into the hallways, it would only be showing me the ability to adjust things in the hallway space. But since I've chosen the 8th floor, you can see all of the children's space of the 8th floor. Now I'm going to open up a very simple show file to discuss all of these properties on the right. So hang on for that. We'll just carry on right now. And some of the pages that might be shown besides the space control will be the welcome screen. I've checked that off. And there we can put in some custom text. And in a second zone on the display, you can choose nothing, text, text and time, image, look controls, or conditions. So I am going to put in an image, and you'll see I've made a nice hospital logo for the St. Joe's Children's Hospital. You can also check off to view conditions. Now I've actually gone and renamed the pages here. So for the conditions page, I've called this presets, and backing up, for the spaces page, I've renamed it manual. And if we had a schedule, we could view the schedule by turning it on here. Then there are the overall settings. Now, if you are in a non-controlled area, you may want to add an unlock code to make sure that anybody who is adjusting the lighting in the area has the correct credentials. Now, also under the right-click menu here are some of the configuration of the devices. So you can set up the network to be under DHCP or a static IP address, and you can set the orientation to be landscape or portrait, and set the brightness, inactive time, and then what happens when it does go inactive, how bright does the screen go. So now we have configured our device. Let's go and preview it to see what it looks like. So this is what our device looks like when we put it up for simulation. And if we were hooked up to the real lighting rig, we could actually operate it here without the hardware. So we have our little logo that makes us feel right at home here. And then I will go into manual control. And here it shows you the different spaces. So if I go on to the 8th floor here, I can turn on the clouds look and we can see that simulated right there on our create screen. Or I could choose this round and round look, where the lights spin around the room. And one of the options we had was, do you want an off? So in a hospital situation, it may be appropriate to never have an off button. The other thing we've checked off in this area is the ability, let's turn on the clouds again, the ability to override the color. So if you have a new patient in and their favorite color is pink, you can have a pink look as you welcome them in, or whatever you choose. Likewise, if we went into the desk edge, we can choose a static blue look. It looks like this. We can have a very calming, warm look like this, or something playful, more like this. Now, instead of having direct control of the spaces, we can go into preset control, which is our conditions tag. Now, some may ask, what is this little symbol? It's based on standard nomenclature for logic gates like XOR, NOR, OR, AND. So that is what this symbol is about, if you were wondering. But I have renamed it here presets, and we can go to the desk, and these are the different presets. So if I go to the day look, what it does is it makes the hallway rather cool in temperature, very cool light over the desk area, and a playful look because there's probably a lot of activity. Then we could go into the evening, and that might be done by the time clock as well, but in the evening we sort of warm up the hallway here. We warmed up the work lights over top of the nurse's station a bit, and we've gone to a static blue look. And just to show the late night look, what we've done is we warmed everything up substantially and really dimmed down the halls. So as I do, I like to break things down by putting up the simplest show file possible. So I have built a show file here which has 3 lights in a space called 3 lights. And my first light here is just an intensity light. It's just a value that goes from 0 to full. This guy here is a tunable white light, and it has a warm channel and a cool channel. So it goes from, say, 3000 Kelvin up to 6000 Kelvin, who knows. And this guy here is a standard RGB light. Now I put in these 3 very different types of lights because I want to describe in the touchscreen interface some of the overrides that are available to you if you switch them on. So I built a look here which is called full. It just takes everybody to full white light. And then I have a second look here which has the first light at 25%, the next one at 50%, and the next one at 95%. And that will become interesting when we start to master the space with an intensity. This is my Perform touchscreen, and if I double click on it, you can see it is emulating here, and it shows my space, the 3 lights. If we go into the devices view, right click on the device and say edit the interface, it says what would you like to do with the space called 3 lights. You can recall looks, Yes, please. Thank you very much. Do you want to show an off look? I'm going to turn that on. Do you want an intensity master for the space? Let's turn that on. Do you want an intensity override for the space? That will only become interesting when not everybody's at full. And do you want a tunable white override? We have a tunable white light. Let's turn that on and see what that looks like. And do you want a color override? Yes, we have our RGB. We may want a color picker on the screen. Turn that on. So we just say next, 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 finished. And now we are looking at a visualization of what our touchscreen will look like. I press the space, 3 lights, and I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 different pages inside of that. This is the look recall page. I have the off look, and now I'm going to turn on the numbers so you can actually see what's coming out of the controller. So here everybody's at full. Here the cool and white channels are pretty much at full, or the warm channel is at 99, the cool channel is at full, and my red, my green, and my blue are all at full. If I press the off look, you will see everybody fades out on the screen and in the data scope down to 0. Let's turn them back on to full. And I'm going to hit this other look just for a second to show you where we're going. The first light's going down to 25%. The next one's going down to about half intensity. And this one's at 95% intensity. So let's go to full and hit this button here, which is the space overall intensity master. It's defaulting at 100%, so everything will be at its recorded value. So we see 100, 100, 100, 100. If we went into this other look, as we are sitting there, we see 25, 50, and 95. If I took this down to half now, the 25 becomes 12, the 50 becomes 25, and the 95 becomes 47. So you can just see as I move this, everything is shafting together in the same way. If I take it all the way up to full, that's what we had recorded. Now, let's take it down to half again and then show what this, which is the intensity override, does. Right now, everybody is at half of what we recorded. If I go to an intensity override of 50, everybody goes to half of 50. Let me just bump that up. So 25, 25, 25, 25. So it doesn't matter where they were recorded. Everybody in the room goes to the new value, which is a combination or a multiplication of the override and the intensity master. To make the math simple, let's just take the intensity up to full. And now we can see that 50% here equals 50% down there, full down there. So if we wanted to override, we had a subtlety of, a little bit dim here, a little bit brighter over here, and super bright there. And then we want to override it on occasion and have everybody ride at, 75%. Then we would just use this button here. It's called intensity override, and we set everybody up to 75%. Now let's just take this up to full, and now let's have a look at the color temperature. So this is the override for color temperature. Currently it's not set, which means that it's going full brightness, a mixture of the warm and the cool. Now if I start to move this towards the cool, you can see that the warm channel, the first channel, is dropping down. So the overall color of the light is much cooler. And of course, when I go back to the middle, which is neutral, then it is the combination of the warm channels and the cool channels. And if I go towards the warm, then I take out the cool and we're just left with a very orangey light. Now you'll notice as I do this, it does not affect the red, the green, or the blue of the RGB, and it doesn't affect the intensity of my normal white light. Now what if we go into the paintbrush here, which is the color picker override. So here we can see everybody is at full. We haven't really set this yet. It's in the white position. So if I chose a very deep red, you can see that the green and the blue pretty much go to 0, and I can actually adjust these right down to 0, and that's pure red. If I wanted pure blue, I could do it like that, or pure green, I could come over like this and pick any color in between, and I am live controlling the RGB values. Now this is a different one because as we go from bright white light where all three emitters are on, we're getting the brightest and whitest we can out of the RGB. This color picker will also inherently drop the intensity value of the white light in the room and the tunable white light in the room, because they can't be pumping at full when this guy is only using 1/3 of his emitter. So that's why they are dropping below 50% here. So that's a pretty in-depth look at what you can do with the Pathway Perform touchscreens. And what I really like about it is the ability to simulate it live, and then you can look at variations of portrait and landscape, or 5-inch or 8-inch, or what it might look like on a mobile device like a tablet or a phone. And then you can look at the relationships between parent and child spaces and move your device up a generation to give yourself more control, or tie it down by putting it deep within inside a nested group of spaces, or expose conditions that allow you to work all the way across the project regardless of which space you're in. So play around with it. Hope you enjoy. Until next time, I'm Robert. Take care.